Hi, welcome to another edition of the Alan Rosenberg Show. This is a series I do that I really enjoy. I call it Time Capsule, and I look back 50 years, and I also look back 40 years in another video, of the albums that came out that year. So we're talking about 50 years ago, 1973. A banner year for me. I was 10 years old. It's the first year that I started the Alan Rosenberg Show, my database, and cataloging my music, and it's all computerized now. So this is like my ground zero. And what you're going to see here, these are about 75 of my favorite albums that came out in 1973. I own 144 albums that came out in 1973. That video would be way too long. So I took out about 75 of my favorite, and then I'm going to rank them at the end, my top 10. But, you know, there's always conversation. Is rock dead? When you see a video like this, you're going to say, yeah, maybe it is, because the volume and the quality and the quantity of great rock music that came out back then, it's off the chart. 144 albums from 1973 I own that I love. Now, you know, at the end of the year, when I try to do my top 3 albums of the year, it's hard to find 3 that are great. Here's 144. But anyway, that's what we're going to do today. And I've already done it for 71 and 81, and I did one for 72 and 82. They're in my videos. Here's 1973. I'm going to do it in alphabetical order, and then I'm going to pull out the top 10 and rank them at the end. If you're new to my channel, please hit subscribe. I know it's annoying to hear that, but it'll help my channel to grow. I got a really good growing community here of people that are regulars, and we write back and forth, and they write to each other, and it's a great community. And the more subscribers I have, the more that I'll pop up in searches and continue to grow that community for everybody's benefit, so we could all kind of learn from each other. But I think you're going to enjoy this. Let's start. We're going to start at letter A, and 1973, the very first album from Aerosmith, of which I'm a big fan. Well, I'm a big fan of all of these albums, so I shouldn't really have to say that. But, of course, you know, Dream On was on this album, but this is a really good record. It wasn't really a big hit at the time, but it's a grower. Greg Allman's best solo record by far, in my opinion, is Laid Back. And that came out in 73. Does a completely different version of Midnight Rider and Jackson Browne's These Days. And the Allman Brothers, I'm wearing their shirt right there. The Allman Brothers hit their commercial peak with Brothers and Sisters. Dwayne, of course, was gone. Barry Oakley was gone. Brought in Chuck Leavell, Lamar Williams, and boy, did they hit it big with the #1 Rambler Man. But this is an amazing record, Jessica. Brothers and Sisters, definitely one of my favorites. Bachman Turner Overdrive, their second album, BTO2. Excuse me. A great album. Let It Ride is a highlight of this, and of course, Taking Care of Business. But a really strong record. They would do better, but still pretty great. Sabbath Bloody Sabbath from Black Sabbath. I just recently did a ranking video of Black Sabbath, and this is a classic for sure. Blue Oyster Cult's second album, Tyranny and Mutation. Back in their black and white phase. That came out in 73 also. One of my favorites, David Bowie and Aladdin Sane. This is the 30th anniversary 2 CD edition. This album sometimes to me gets overlooked with Ziggy Stardust, but honestly, it's in my opinion, it's probably just as good, or really close anyway. And Lady Grinning Soul, one of my favorite Bowie songs that's kind of lost in the ether. A lot of people don't know that one, but that's a great track. Great album for sure. As is this one. This is a pirated version because they still can't put it out. They can't seem to agree on it. But the Buckingham Nicks album, and I did a video on this, one of my first videos of Lost Classic Albums. This is the epitome of that. Why this album has never been redone, re-released, you know, remastered, and I don't understand it. It's an amazing album. If it was a Fleetwood Mac album, man, it'd be one of the best Fleetwood Mac albums. This album's got legs for me. I mean, I played the hell out of this album every year since I've had it. It's an amazing record. I recently did a unboxing of Caravan, but I already had their 73 album, which is called For Girls Who Grow Plump in the Night. They have great titles. And this is a really great Caravan album. This is one of those that if you don't know Caravan, you could listen to this, and I think you're going to really like it. It's very accessible. And this is a great, great Caravan album that came out in '73. Gene Clark released Roadmaster, and that was a great record. Because he was the lead singer of the Byrds for a long time, and that was a great record. This is a really cool album. Did you ever hear of Billy Cobham, an amazing jazz fusion drummer? He did an album called Spectrum, which had somebody on there called Tommy Bolin, and this is a great, great jazz fusion record called Spectrum from Billy Cobham. Keep that organized. It's a really cool band. Cockney Rebel, featuring Steve Harley on vocals. Their first album is called The Human Menagerie. This is an amazing record. Check out a song on YouTube called Sebastian. If you don't like it, you're not going to like them, but I think it's amazing. And that was a great record. This is on one of these box sets, but that album, Human Menagerie. I think the best Alice Cooper record, $1 Billion Babies. And this is a beautiful deluxe edition on CD. All kinds of fold-out stuff. But this, Alice Cooper Band at their prime. One of the most famous, best live records, Deep Purple, Made in Japan. And that came out in '73 as well. A lot of jamming, and this was the deluxe edition with some extra bonus tracks. But Deep Purple at their best live right there. Bob Dylan did a movie soundtrack, Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, and it's a really good record. It's got some instrumental kind of themes, but it works really well, and of course it's got Knocking on Heaven's Door, the original version. And the Eagles put out Desperado. Was not a huge success initially, but another, the Eagles, everything the Eagles do is just top quality. They just put a lot of work in there. And Tequila Sunrise, the title track, Dylan Dalton, great record. As is this. I think Emerson, Lake and Palmer probably at their best. Really cool cover. Brain Salad Surgery on CD right there. And Carnival 9. Huge masterpiece for sure. Came out in '73. As did Peter Frampton's second album, Frampton's Camel. Another fine release. The original versions of Lines on My Face, but it's got White Sugar on there. Don't Fade Away is a great song. And of course the original version, Do You Feel Like We Do. Better on the live record, but a fine release. A latter-day Free album that doesn't get a lot of respect among some circles, but I think it's a tremendous record, and this is Heartbreaker. And this has Wishing Well, one of their greatest songs for sure. Easy on My Soul, nice deluxe edition. Heartbreaker from Free came out in '73. A lot of people think this is Genesis' greatest album, and some people think it's the greatest progressive rock album of all time. I love it to death. I don't think it's their best album. I did videos on Genesis, and I was an early adopter on Genesis, but this is a tremendous record. And of course, The Cinema Show and Firth the Fifth got one of the greatest guitar solos of all time. We're talking Selling England by the Pound, Genesis 1973. I skipped a couple. Let me go back. I forgot about the vinyls. Black Oak, Arkansas, High on the Hog. Really famous album by them. Why? Because it's got their most famous song, Jim Dandy to the Rescue, with Ruby Starr helping out on vocals. And I'll show you why I thought about that. Charlie Daniels released an album back in 1973 called Honey in the Rock. You can see what Charlie looked like. Now, Charlie's always done a pretty cool thing. Some of these early albums had great songs, but they just weren't really popular. So like No Place to Go, he reissued live on Fire in the Mountain. Funky Junkie, he redid on Knight Rider. But you're going to see he wound up having a hit called Uneasy Rider, which is a great, really funny song from this album. And then they wound up re-releasing the album, same tracks, re-releasing the album as Uneasy Rider because of the hit. So Charlie Daniels, at that time, we were in G with Genesis. This is a great, great live record that came out in '73. Focus, Live at the Rainbow. Phenomenal live band. And great musicianship, and it's even got Hocus Pocus live. Great live record from '73. Jay Giles Band, Bloodshot. And I'm actually going to show it to you because I think, if memory serves, and it does, how sweet is that? Bloodshot came out on red vinyl, at least on the initial pressing anyway. This had the big hit, Give It To Me. Another really good record from Jay Giles' band. Band that I think should be in the Hall of Fame. And that came out in 1973 as well. Really good record. Genesis, that's what made me go back. Genesis Live also came out in 73. So Genesis in 73 did Selling England by the Pound, and Genesis Live, really cool. This is a first pressing of live record. Tracks from Nursery Crime Foxtrot and The Knife from Trespass. And Grand Funk. We still in G? We'll keep going. Grand Funk, or an American band. I think probably their best record. Produced by Todd Rundgren. Of course, it's got it. We're an American band, and if I remember right, I think this has got yellow. Indeed, it does. The original yellow vinyl. This also came out in 1973. Todd Rundgren did a great job, I think, producing them. And this album, besides the title track, is just a killer record in every way. We're an American band from Grand Funk. Let's keep going. Gentle Giant released their album, In a Glass House. Not such an easy listen, Gentle Giant, but if you give them a chance, they grow on you. Grateful Dead released Wake of the Flood in 1973. And a lot of great tracks on that record. Stella Blue, Weather Report Suite, Eyes of the World, classic Grateful Dead. We're in letter H. Hall & Oates before they became world famous, but this is a great record, Abandoned Luncheonette. If you don't know this album, it's a great one. And of course, you probably know She's Gone. That was the big classic from that record. George Harrison. I believe this was a #1 album, right? Living in a Material World. This is a box set version of it. Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth. Really strong George Harrison album. That came out in 73. Hot Tuna, back in their prime in around 73. The Phosphorescent Rat. It's got I See the Light. Easy Now. Living Just for You. Hot Tuna. Waylon Jennings kind of crossing over at that time. Country and rock was starting to merge at that time. And Waylon Jennings put out Lonesome, Ornery, and Mean. And him and Willie Nelson were kind of crossing over at that time, like outlaw music, they called it. And this is a really good Waylon Jennings album. Billy Joel put out The Piano Man. I live on Long Island, man. You can't get in a car and put the radio out without hearing Piano Man on the radio. But Ballad of Billy the Kid's another one. Billy Joel. Elton John. Well, you couldn't get much bigger than Elton John in 1973. He put out not one, but two all-time classics. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road was the second one, and that's about as good a double album as you can get. Damn near perfect double record, and this was a personal favorite of mine in 73. The vinyl was beautiful with a booklet inside. Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player. Daniel and Crocodile Rock. Boy, was Elton huge. Still is, of course. The Kinks put out Preservation, Act 1. I'm a huge Kinks fan, but even I got to admit, that's not their best album. This was a huge hit for me. This is Led Zeppelin, of course, and Houses of the Holy. And I remember buying that album the day it came out. The cover looked like that, had a belly band, and didn't get very good reviews at the time critically, but I loved it. My sister loved it, and we played it to death and still play it every once in a while. Houses of the Holy. Put that up there. Little Feat put out Dixie Chicken. Good record. Love Fat Man in the Bathtub and the title track and Two Trains. One of the great American bands. Little Feat, Dixie Chicken. Debut albums don't get much better than this, do they? Leonard Skinner. And their first record pronounced Leonard Skinner. What a debut record, right? I Ain't the One. Tuesday's Gone. Give Me 3 Steps. Simple Man. And Freebird. Oh my God. That's a debut album, right? Let's keep going with some more vinyl. Jethro Tull put out, I would say, a little bit controversial. Almost broke up the band at that point. The critics mauled this album, but I think it's a really cool release. It's not an easy listen, but it's not meant to be an easy listen. And this is the original vinyl. It's got the, I like a Broadway show from the Linwell Theater, and it's got the whole book. Really great packaging. You know, this came after Thick as a Brick, which also had great packaging, and of course it's pretty much just one 45-minute song. This one has the story of the hare who lost his spectacles, which I think is really fun too. You know, not an easy listen, Passion Play. Not the first Tull album you want to go to, but if you love Tull, you can dig into that album. Mahavishnu Orchestra, 1973. Jazz fusion, rock jazz fusion was getting pretty popular, and this is about as good as it gets with that. Birds of Fire from the Mahavishnu Orchestra. This is just a great recording. Billy Cobham, the drummer that I showed before, he was, of course, the drummer in here, and John McLaughlin, amazing guitarist. They put out 2 Bob Marley and the Wailers albums at that time in 1973. Catch a Fire, this is the deluxe edition of that. Amazing. It's got the remix and the original mix. And then you got Burnin', another deluxe edition. And this one's got a great live show from Leeds in 1973. 2 classics from Bob Marley in 1973. Catch a Fire and Burnin'. The Marshall Tucker Band put out their first album in 73. They were opening a lot for the Allman Brothers at the time. And what a debut this is. Take the Highway, Can't You See, Hillbilly Band. See You Later, I'm Gone. Great stuff from Marshall Tucker. Paul McCartney had a banner year in 73. He put out Red Rose Speedway, an album that took a while to grow on me because it's just kind of loose and sloppy, and besides a classic My Love, kind of a strange, loose record, but it's a grower over time. Later on in 73, he put out Band on the Run. This was not a grower. This was an instant classic. Every damn song on it is amazing, and definitely one of my favorite albums of all time. Back in 73, Band on the Run from Mr. Paul McCartney. Let's keep going. Mott put out Mott the Hoople put out Mott. Another fine record from Ian Hunter and the Boys, all the way from Memphis was the hit. Hymn for the Dudes, Honolulu Boogie. Mott the Hoople. I'm a big fan of Nectar, and this is a deluxe edition of Sounds Like This, which was a double album. They did nice packaging on this one. This is before Remember the Future, but still a really good record. New Day Dawning, Good Day, Do You Believe in Magic, Cast Your Fate, Day in the Life of the Preacher, Wings. Really good Nectar album. New Riders of the Purple Stage put out The Adventures of Panama Red. If you were listening to classic rock radio back then, you used to hear Panama Red, Panama Red. Really fun record. Kicking the Head's another one. Lonesome LA Cowboy. The New Riders of the Purple Sage with The Adventures of Panama Red. Mike Oldfield, Tubular Bells, became worldwide famous because they used the theme for The Exorcist. But here it was, a huge record that put Virgin Records on the map. Well, what can you say? 1973 was the year of Dark Side of the Moon. Here is a really cool SACD version of the album. There's tons and tons of versions of Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. They're putting out another one I just heard. I don't know how many versions they can put out. I guess they just keep selling. This is a cool version. The Experience Edition's got a live show of the album from Wembley in 1974. You know, if somebody said Dark Side of the Moon's the greatest album of all time and it's perfect, I would not argue. I don't play it that much because it's played out, but, you know, it doesn't get much better than Dark Side of the Moon, does it? Queen, they put out their first album in 1973, and here's the Queen album. And this is a CD version that's a reproduction of the vinyl. Paul Simon put out There Goes Rhymin' Simon, another great Paul Simon solo record, and this is the one that's got American Tune on it, and Love Me Like a Rock, and Something So Right, and Take Me to the Mardi Gras. What can you say? He's a legend for a reason, Paul Simon. Bruce Springsteen put out not one, but 2 albums. I discovered them probably like most people later on, but the debut, Greetings from Asbury Park, New Jersey, and then the Wild the Innocent, the East Street Shuffle. Bruce Springsteen. 1973 with 2 albums that over time obviously became classics. Ringo Starr put out a huge record in '73, the Ringo album. I remember there was a TV special he did as well. But this album, man, I played the hell out of this record. And it's by far, in my opinion, Ringo's never done better. So there it is. Ringo Starr and the Ringo album with help from some of the Beatle members. Status Quo put out a great record in '73 called Hello. Reminds me of Spinal Tap. Can you get any blacker? But you could see the outline there. Black on Black. Great album. Roll Over Lay Down, Claudine, Blue Eyed Lady, Caroline, 4,500 Times. Classic Status Quo. Steely Dan put out Countdown to Ecstasy. Everything they do is top quality. Showbiz Kids, My Old School, Bodhisattva, the big hits from this record. Strawbs put out a really cool live record called Bursting at the Seams. And it's a really good one. If you like Strawbs, that's a really good record. You got the Part of the Union. This is not live. Did I say live? It looks live. Lay Down, Tears and Pavane. This is, in my opinion, Strawbs at their best. I don't know if you remember a band called Triumvirate. They were known as almost like a takeoff of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. 3 guys, very heavy on the keyboards. But this is a great record. I love this one. Illusions on the Double Dimple. And this is a terrific Triumvirate album. If you like Emerson, Lake and Palmer, you'll really like them. If you don't like Emerson, Lake and Palmer, you won't like them. Really good. Uriah Heep. Let's take a break and go back to vinyl. Renaissance, one of my favorite bands, put out Ashes Are Burning with the classic title track and Can You Understand, Let It Grow, Carpet of the Sun. Really good release. The Rolling Stones, well, I've done multiple videos on Goat's Head Soup. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. It's one of my go-to Stones records. I think it's the most underrated Stones album there is. And it was the first Rolling Stones album I ever bought when it first came out. So bear with me a second, guys, as I just made a mess. But Goat's Head Soup, really special album for me. Another band, Tucky Buzzard. Interesting band. This is a really cool cover. All Right on the Night. They were produced by Bill Wyman. And that's how I got into them. Jimi Henderson, lead vocalist. Terry Taylor, really great guitarist. You can check out a song called Gold Medallions. Good band. Fine record. This is why I went back. Uriah Heep is what we're up to. And they released their classic live record, Uriah Heep Live, January of '73. And this is a classic 70s live album. Great track listing, great performance. The classic Uriah Heep band right there. And then they also released in '73 Sweet Freedom. Fine record. Let's keep going. What are we up to? Wet Willie? Wet Willie, one of the great 70s live albums right here called Drippin' Wet on Capricorn Records. Very soulful, funky Southern rock band. One of the things I love about Southern rock, the bands all sound pretty different. And this one, Wet Willie, so funky. This is a great, great live record. If you like live albums, you should pick that one up. Rick Wakeman, his first solo record, The Six Wives of Henry VIII, all instrumental. And I'm a big fan of this album. Those first 3 Rick Wakeman albums with The Journey to the Center of the Earth and King Arthur, great stuff. Michael Wendorf just did a video on first albums that I ever owned. I know nobody ever heard of him pretty much, but a fine singer-songwriter on Buddha Records, and I love this album. Came out back in '73. The Who. Really special record for me. I've done many videos on The Who and done videos on Quadrophenia. I got Super Deluxe and Mega Deluxe and regular deluxes and regular editions. What can I tell you? Quadrophenia, super special albums for me. It's my favorite Who album. And that came out in '73. Johnny Winter put out Still Alive and Well. Great record from Johnny. Probably pretty much at his most famous at that point. And he would cover the Stones because he did Silver Train on here and Let It Bleed. Really fine record. Wishbone Ash, I love this album. Live dates, double live record. Great live record of their first 4 albums. So this is just essential, and one of the first albums I ever got by Wishbone Ash. And they had also put out in '73 Wishbone 4, which was their 4th album, the one that came after August. And a lot of people thought it was a really big disappointment after August. It's not nearly as good as August, but it's a fine record for sure. Doctor is classic. Ballad of the Beacon's amazing. Sorrow's good. Rock and Roll Widow. Fine record from Wishbone Ash. Bill Withers, live at Carnegie Hall. Classic double vinyl on 1 CD. Use Me, Grandma's Hands, Ain't No Sunshine, Lean on Me. Great live record from Bill Withers. Stevie Wonder put out the classic Intervisions. He was really on the roll at that point, and this is the one with Higher Ground, Living for the City, and other stuff as well. Intervisions from Stevie Wonder. Yes put out not 1 but 2 great albums. One is Yes Songs, one of my favorite live albums of all time. You can check out one of my other videos. I think this is the perfect distillation of Yes from their career at that point. An amazing live record. They also put out the classic Tales from Topographic Oceans. We could do a whole video just on this, and I've discussed it in the past. I'm a really big fan of the album, but it's kind of like Passion Play. You gotta kind of be in the mood for it. You can't just throw this on. It's definitely padded, as Rick Wakeman left the band because of it. Probably could use some editing, but some great melodies throughout this album. And when you lay down when you're in the mood and you play that album, great experience. Couple more and we're almost done running through them. Frank Zappa put out probably his most accessible album, Overnight Sensation. Zappa and the Mothers in 1973. And this is one of the first Zappa albums I ever had. Camarillo, Brillo, I'm the Slime, Dirty Love, Zombie Woof, Dynamo Hum, Montana. If you want to experience Frank Zappa, this is a really good entry point. It was one of the entry points for me, actually. And last but not least, ZZ Top put out Tres Hombres, a classic album that came out in '73. You know, Waiting for the Bus, Jesus Just Left Chicago, Beer Drinkers, and Hellraisers. This is one of the best ZZ Top albums for sure. So there you have it from 1973. I just showed you, I think actually 77 albums of my favorites out of the 144 that I own that came out in '73. So what would be my top 10? Ooh, really hard to really rank them because I love all of these albums. But if I had to start with and put it into the top 10, well, you know, I guess I would put like a number 10 Wishbone Ash. This is an essential Wishbone Ash album. It's one of the first albums that I ever had by them, and it's a great live record. Live dates, I'd put that as number 10. Let's keep going. At number 9, I would probably put Buckingham Nicks. That's right. This is, again, a pirated version. I don't feel bad. Put the damn thing out again, and I'll be glad to buy it from you guys. But this is the best Fleetwood Mac album you've ever heard. That's not Fleetwood Mac, unfortunately. It's just Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks, but just amazing stuff out there. That would be number 9. At number 8, I'd probably go with David Bowie and Aladdin Sane. I think it's a phenomenal album. I love it. Lady Grinning Soul is the lost track on there, but every song on this album is great. And it's right up there with Ziggy Stardust, almost. At number 7, I would probably go with Elton John. And Don't Shoot Me was a really special album for me, but Goodbye Yellow Brick Road is one of the greatest double albums of all time. Damn near perfect. That would be 10, 9, 8. Number 7, we're going to go with that. At number 6, I would go with Yes Songs. I think one of the greatest live albums of all time. And to this day, still one of my go-to Yes albums. It's a great distillation of Yes. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Number 5, I'm going to go with Band on the Run from Paul McCartney. Perfect McCartney album. At number 4, I'm going to go with Houses of the Holy from Led Zeppelin. The first Zeppelin album I ever bought when it first came out, the day it came out. A really special record for me. At number 3, Listen, what can I tell you? I wouldn't argue, like I said, if somebody said I'm an idiot, it's the greatest album of all time, I wouldn't argue with it. Dark Side of the Moon is a perfect listen. Fact of the matter is I don't really ever play it because it's kind of overplayed. When I want to listen to Pink Floyd, I'm listening to Animals and even Wish You Were Here above this. But no doubt that Dark Side of the Moon is unbelievable, and it would be number 3. Number 2 for me, my favorite Who album. I think it's just special. It's in my genes, in my DNA. I never get tired of listening to Quadrophenia. It's deep. The songs are amazing. The story is amazing. Everything about it, it's big. It's the Who big. Quadrophenia, my number 2 album of all time. My number 1 album, The Rolling Stones. Not trying to be biased. It was the first Stones album I bought the day it came out. I think it's incredibly underrated. I did a whole video on Goat's Head Soup. I have multiple versions of it. But Goat's Head Soup for me is the number 1 album of the year for 1973. I still play Goat's Head Soup regularly. 50 years later, I still play Goat's Head Soup regularly. Dark Side of the Moon, I don't really play much. Kind of played out. Quadrophenia, I still play a lot. Houses of the Holy, on occasion. Yes Songs, I still play a lot. Buckingham Nicks I still play all the time, and even Live Dates I play a lot, and Aladdin Sane. So there you go. Those are my choices, the top 10 of 1973, and I also showed you about 75 other albums to choose from, and it kind of drives home the point. Rock and roll was king back then in the 70s. I just showed you 75 albums that are all phenomenal. I have another 70 also from 1973 that I didn't show you that are great. And now every year when I do my top 3 albums, I struggle to find 3 great albums. It's a shame. It's a shame, but I could live in the past anyway. And for all you people who don't have any of these albums, there's a lot of great music that's not dated. This stuff sounds as good today as it did then. Please send your comments. Let me know your favorite albums of 1973, and I'm sure watching this video, it'll bring back memories. You'll be like, oh, that album, that album, that album. And I hope you enjoy this series as I go back 50 years. I'm going to do one on 1983. And I'll probably, maybe I'll even do 93, because I could just sort it on my computer. I could just pick out any years. But it's kind of fun to go back 50 years, 40 years, 30 years, that kind of thing. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Stay healthy out there. Check out my other videos. Please hit subscribe. We'd greatly appreciate it. And have a great night and a great weekend. I'll see you around.